and on the 5th or the 6th rep, it didn't go up. My hamstring went up, but the machine didn't go up. I tore my hamstring. I couldn't hear it because I was listening to my favorite music, but I heard from other gym members that apparently I made the weirdest noise, probably like a Targ mating call. Vigorous Steve here. Well, since you guys liked that 1000 milligrams Tremboloni sandwich per week video so much, I think it's time for another story. Let's talk about the time I tore both of my hamstrings running Anadrol pre-workout. This happened on 2 separate occasions. I tore my right hamstring in Holland, and then within 6 or 7 months, I tore my left side running Anadrol again in Thailand. So by the time, literally on the day I couldn't feel my right side anymore, was fully recovered, I tore my left side. But hey, it turned into a huge learning moment. This is how I learned, always the hard way. I learned exactly how to recover from muscle tears and tendon tears and other kinds of injuries, which are ligaments. And now I have a ton of videos about that on this YouTube channel. So don't do what I did. To get to this learning moment, all you have to do is watch those videos, which I'll overlay, so you know exactly how to recover your tendons and muscles and all of your ligaments if something deleterious happens during your workout. Before we get into it, please like the video, leave a comment for the algorithm, and consider subscribing if you haven't already. And feel free to support the channel by joining either the YouTube or Patreon memberships, where you can vote for upcoming deep dives. I believe that the ultimate entrepreneurial nootropic stack is currently in the lead, so if you want to confirm with a vote or vote for something else, that's entirely up to you. You can do so by joining the Deep Diver membership option. And otherwise, we have the Vigorous Q&A always over the weekend. So if you want to have a 100% chance that your question gets answered during the private Vigorous Q&A, again, there's a membership option for that specifically. No super chats required, albeit that they're still highly appreciated. Let's get started with the story. I believe the year was 2012, a couple months after finishing this 1000 milligrams Tremboloni acetate per week sandwich that really did me in. I did a little bit of a cruise during this time. Again, during this time was blasting and cruising, so I went down to maybe 250 milligrams testosterone enthate per week. And then a couple months later, after I felt sufficiently healthy and this rain cloud that the Tremboloni induced was now gone and away and was finally sunny and happy-go-lucky again, I decided to go on an off-season cycle consisting of testosterone enthate and boldenone and destinate. I can't remember for the life of me what their dosages was. Let's say it was a total of 1,000 milligrams, maybe 1,500 milligrams of testosterone and boldenone together. And then after about 3 months on that, ramping up the dosages slowly, I wanted to push my personal bests to the next level. I was training in a decent gym in Holland, and I wanted to add in Anadrol pre-workout to finish off this off-season, eating a mountain of all kinds of nutritious bro foods with a ton of micronutrients, which I was preparing fresh in the morning every single day. Still was very high food volume, so by the time I added in the Anadrol, I was already stuffed to my ears. Literally, my stomach was all the way further than the camera, further than my chest. I would say eating about maybe 5,500 calories at the end of this bulk before I added in the Anadrol. And of course, the Anadrol really crushed my appetite, but I was able to power shove and force feed my way through because I wanted to max out all of the machines and hit a couple personal bests at that time. So let's skip over all of the personal bests. Let's go straight to the lying hamstring curl, which I think it was either a Cybex or a Live Fitness one. I can't really remember which piece of equipment it was. It was a lying hamstring curl machine with a bicycle chain, not one of those flimsy ones with a cable, which ultimately always breaks. And then you hit yourself in the butt with the pads and some of the metal parts of the equipment. And trying to explain that to your significant other when you can't even walk, and then it really looks like you spent a month in prison and you were the butt boy for everybody else, right? That's how much it hurts. Happened to me once, but I didn't tear my hamstring during that time. This was one with a bicycle chain, heavy duty. You could max it out. And I was, I think, 1 or 2 pins from the full stack. So I did a couple warm-ups. I already did my quad workouts. I was ready to max out this set. I had two pins from the bottom. And then on the 5th or 6th rep, my hamstring went. Now, I think that's because this machine particularly, when you fully extend, and again, I love my full range of motion, guys. This is how you build true thick muscle, full range of motion always, none of this Japanese jav range of motion, like 2 inches. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about full range of motion, like your Mandigo, all the way in and all the way out, or in this case, all the way to the top and all the way to the bottom. But at the bottom of this equipment, there was a little bit of resistance. So in the first couple of reps, I got a full rep. I was able to hold contraction at the top, pressing the pad against my glutes and my hamstrings, or really holding it tight with almost a full stack. And then the 5th or the 6th rep, it didn't go up. My hamstring went up, but the machine didn't go up. I tore my hamstring. I couldn't hear it because I was listening to my favorite music, but I heard from other gym members that apparently I made the weirdest noise, probably like a Targ mating call. So it literally felt like I was ripping a t-shirt open, like Gaston in Beauty and the Beast, showing your thick chest full with hair, which in my case is not really thick and certainly not full with hair, but it felt like ripping a t-shirt all the way from the top to the bottom. Now, it wasn't that bad, right? It's not like I tore my hamstring off the bone. And in that moment, all I could think about was screaming out, medic. I played way too much Call of Duty or another game which used that functionality to get yourself out of this sticky situation when you were close to death, preventing a respawn. And I might have said it at the same time, probably just growled and screamed medic. But again, I was listening to my favorite music, which was back then and still is melodic death metal. So it happened. I came off the machine. I decided to call it quits for the day because at that time you don't really know how severe a hamstring tear like that is going to be. I gave myself like 5 to 10 minutes to kind of assess how bad the damage was. There was no bruising. There was no visible indentation. All I remember that it was very, very hard to actually squeeze and contract my right hamstring. So I sat there for, let's say, 10 minutes. Then I had to go walk downstairs from the 2nd floor to the bicycle rack because I came to the gym on a bicycle. Yes, that's what we do in Holland. We take the bicycle everywhere. Good luck trying to ride the bicycle for 15 minutes with a semi-torn hamstring. Yeah, it was not fun. And of course, it was the middle of winter, so it was also excruciatingly cold. And that's probably another reason why I tore my hamstring on Anadrol. I probably didn't warm up enough, right? I felt strong. I felt energetic. I was full with a ton of food. I just had a killer quad workout. I had my 50 milligrams Anadrol pre-workout. I did a couple sets. I thought I was sufficiently warmed up from the quads prior. And then I tore my hamstring. So I went home and then I had to figure out how to recover from this injury as fast as possible. Now, back then we didn't have TB500 or BPC157. I wasn't aware of them, but I did have access to pharmaceutical grade growth hormone in the form of Pfizer Genotropin, which due to the times I will never ever touch again. I will not support that company any further. But back then, that was all the pharmaceutical grade growth hormone I was able to get, which I got from an HIV patient in Germany. So it was a quick drive over to Germany. There was a product exchange with one of, let's say, one of Dutch more famous and more well-known exports. So we did a product exchange. I got the Pfizer Genotropin back. And by the time I tore my hamstring, I had my fridge full with Genotropin. Luckily, I was already running about 2 IUs per day, but I decided to go to 6 to 8 IUs Genotropin per day from one day to the next. So guess what happened? I started holding a ton. And when I say a ton, I mean an astronomical amount of water. I was already holding water from the copious amounts of test and Bolderone and the Anadrol on top and the copious amounts of food that I was eating with a decent amount of electrolytes, albeit that my electrolyte balance was not up to par as where it is currently, right? I was not as familiar with electrolyte intake as I am right now. So I was pretty bloated, having a 4-pack and a ton of water retention. And then growth hormone went from 2 IUs almost to 8 IUs per day, injecting, let's say, 1.2 IUs in between meals approximately every 4 hours, because I did understand that taking copious amounts of growth hormone would inhibit your insulin sensitivity and mess with your nutrient uptake. So I would eat a meal, wait, let's say 1.5 to 2 hours, inject my growth hormone right into the hamstring injury, and then eat another meal, let's say 1.5 to 2 hours later. And just keep doing this throughout the day. I reduced my carbohydrate intake a little bit because obviously I was not going to the gym because I could barely walk during this time. I would just pin using a little bit of a mirror sitting at my desk chair. I put a mirror on the floor and then strategically try to inject 1.2 IU's genotropin into the site of the injury.